Gospel according to Mark, the 7th chapter, beginning at the first verse. Now, when the Pharisees and some of the scribes who had come from Jerusalem gathered around Jesus, they noticed that some of his disciples were eating with defiled hands, that is, without washing them. For the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they thoroughly wash their hands, thus observing the tradition of the elders. And they do not eat anything from the market unless they wash it. There are also many other traditions that they observe, the washing of cups, pots, and bronze kettles. So the Pharisees and the scribes asked him, "Why do your disciples not live according to the tradition of the elders, but eat with defiled hands?" He said to them, "Isaiah prophesied rightly about you hypocrites, as it is written, 'This people honors me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching human precepts as doctrines. You abandon the commandment of God and hold to human tradition.'" Then he called the crowd again and said to them, "Listen to me, all of you, and understand. There's nothing outside a person that by going in can defile, but the things that come out are what defile. For it is from within, from the human heart, that evil intentions come: fornication, theft, murder, adultery, avarice, wickedness, deceit, licentiousness, envy, slander, pride, folly. All these evil things come from within, and they defile a person." The Gospel of Christ. I speak to you in the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Just a little aside, it seems as though the Pharisees and the Jews understood protocol. They actually used to wash their hands before eating and doing everything correctly, so they would have been able to survive the pandemic. That's really good for them. I wanted to share some thoughts with you on verse 15 and maybe verse 21, but mostly verse 15 of chapter 7. There's nothing outside a person that by going in can defile, but the things that come out are what defile. There's nothing outside a person that by going in can defile, but the things that come out are what defile. I'm sure that any doctor or any nutritionist listening to this would be absolutely appalled, because I'm sure they would want to say to us that there are some things that we do put into our bodies that can be injurious. And of course, we know about substances which can destroy our bodies, and sometimes even some foods that we indulge in are not exactly healthy for us, and they can erode our health, especially if we abuse them over a number of years and in excess. But I think the greater point that is being made here is that sometimes we might focus more on the externals as opposed to paying attention to what is really going on inside of us and inside of others. And I mean, it's just natural, because we live in a physical world, and the first thing we tend to see about someone is what they look like, and how they appear, and how they behave. So we are very conscious of how someone dresses and what someone's physical appearance is like, whether they are clean or whether they're untidy, whether their clothes look worn or whether they're nice new clothes, whether their clothes look as though they've been washed or whether their clothes are dirty. And we pay a lot of attention to those things. And sometimes we even ostracize people because of our perception of what they should look like, either in terms of what their physical body looks like, they're too skinny or they're too fat or they're too dark, or, well, they're hardly ever too light, but they're too dark, or they're too short, or they're too tall. And we always find reasons based on the physical appearance why we might be uncomfortable with someone. But sometimes when we get to know people a little better, then we start to get a bit concerned about the real person and what's really going on inside. And then we realize that some of these people that don't exactly look right might make better friends and might make better associates than the ones who are doing everything correctly, because they have it covered and they dress appropriately, they speak appropriately, They associate with the right people. They know when to say what at the right time and before whom, and they do a really good job. But really and truly, they don't care too much about other people. And ironically, their sense of self-importance sometimes means that they have very little regard for themselves. And when I say that, sometimes it could be misunderstood or misconstrued, because people like that sometimes appear to have a very high sense of self. But in a lot of cases, if you were to dig deeper, you will find that that person really has very low self-esteem and is depending on the good opinion of others to inform them of who they are or who they should be. Now, what the writer of the gospel has Jesus say in these words is that the externals are not as important as what is going on the inside, because it's what is going on in the inside that is really injurious to the person, and by extension to their relationships, and also by extension to the rest of the community. And that is sometimes a very difficult thing for us to swallow, because we're all dealing with our own internal challenges and our own internal struggles. And we have learned from a very young age how to present a good face to society so that we can make it through life. And we all do it. There are people who sometimes will go to work or go to a particular setting and they're not really feeling well, sometimes even physically. Sometimes they're not feeling well emotionally, and they show up and they play their part and they leave. But Jesus is saying that, according to the text, that it is the internal that is really the defining factor of who the person really is. Because when someone is untrue to oneself, that means then that by extension, that person is then untrue to the rest of the society. And it means, therefore, that we are really only fooling ourselves, because people can very easily sometimes see through us and see through the facade that we have presented for ourselves to pretend that all is well with us. And it's very interesting that this conflict between the Jewish religious leaders and the Jews themselves as a community arises at this time, because it is clear that for them, following particular practices as prescribed by their society and by extension their religion are crucial to their identity. And so one cannot be a proper Jew unless one does these things. Now, in our time, it just makes common sense. You just make sure you sanitize your hands so you don't catch the COVID and go at some point, and then we'll go down Westbury. It's just common sense. But before that, it helped to define you as a Jew. And it also helped to define you as a proper Jew. And I'm sure if we were to think of our current context, there are certain things that you do to help to identify yourself as a Christian, and furthermore, as a proper Christian. And I'm sure in our minds, we can all highlight certain things that must be done in order for someone to be a proper Christian. Now, the caveat is that I could easily perform all of these functions in the correct way, in the prescribed way, at the correct time, under the correct circumstances. And I'm simply doing it because it is a matter of ritual. But Jesus is at pains to point out that what's going on inside, the intention, is going to be more crucial to the action than what is done. So that challenges us to reflect not on what we do, but why we do. And not only in terms of our Christian context or religious expression, but also in terms of our human activity as individuals. Because sometimes we can easily fall into the trap of doing what is expected of us at a particular time, in a particular place by a particular group of people. Last week, I talked about actors putting on different persona in order to portray the character effectively. But sometimes, unfortunately, for us in life, that's what we do with our everyday lives. So we have to be a particular person in church and be a particular person at work and be a particular person in our social settings and be a particular person in our extracurricular activities. And then persons don't quite get a sense of who we are, and we start to lose our own sense of identity because we have to be so many different things in so many different places without being authentic. I like that text from Shakespeare, to thine own self be true. To thine own self be true. And I think that is crucial as we reflect on the passage for this morning. Because while we could spend a lot of time talking about all the evil intentions that are cited here, I think what is more important is that one reflects and one focuses on purity of heart and integrity, so that you don't have to necessarily watch yourself in terms of trying to ensure that you dodge any of these negative bullets which are highlighted. And I'm sure there might be others which could easily be added in the 21st century. But then we find ourselves in a very difficult situation, trying to say, well, I can't do this now, and I can't do that now, and that's not appropriate. As opposed to being true to ourselves and being honest with ourselves, being authentic. Verse 21 of chapter 7 says, it is from within, from the human heart, that evil intentions come. And I also want to add good intentions, because we could easily focus on the negative things that we do and not focus on the positive. And we're very good at doing that with others, but also with ourselves. What we do is we talk about each other with each other, but then when we go inside, we beat ourselves up as well. We spend a lot of time criticizing ourselves and exploring what we haven't done and what's so bad about us. And sometimes we never reflect on the positive aspects of ourselves and look at how we can enhance those and develop those, and perhaps even bring along and seek to transform those aspects of ourselves which we perceive to be negative. So if I were to do one thing with this text for this morning, I would say it is from within that evil intentions come, but I would also add it is also from within that good intentions come. So that we do not only spend time thinking about what we are incapable of doing or what we find difficulty doing properly and well and in a positive light, but that we also spend some time thinking about, this is crazy, how good we are, because we don't. And I'm sure that each of us could find at least one good thing about ourselves in the midst of all the other things that people say about us and all the things that we say about ourselves. We can find one good, positive thing about ourselves that we are using to develop and enhance humanity and enhance the human experience. And for homework this week, I don't want you to ask anybody, even though you can, because somebody might be able to see what you're not seeing in yourself. But if they tell you that's going to be too easy, and I don't believe in easy work. So I want you to go inside yourself at some point this week, in your prayer, or when you have some quiet time, or when you're home early from curfew or whatever. When you have some time, I want you to sit down and really think of at least one aspect of yourself, one aspect where you embody and display positive attributes. And I want you to be great. Thank God for that, to celebrate it, and to ask God to help you to find more positive aspects of yourself, which may be lying latent or which you might not have identified in the past. And as you're doing that, then you can also ask for God to help you to overcome the negative aspects of yourself. It's a dual journey. But oftentimes we forget to focus on the positive. And this morning, as you know, I like to do things a little differently. I want to challenge us to not beat ourselves up too much, but to start to look for the positive aspects in ourselves. And I promise you, there is something good in each of us. Other people might not see it. You might not see it, but I guarantee you, there is something good in each of us. So I am going to change up the gospel a little bit. I hope the redactionists don't give me too much licks. But I'm going to say, from verse 21, it is from within, from the human heart, that evil intentions come. But it is also from within, from the human heart, that good and positive intentions can also come. So this week, I invite you to focus on the positive. Amen.